this is Lou. I am going to run through in this video an explanation on QCAT so that you can understand it fully and hopefully allay any of your concerns in relation to QCAT dealings. Now, QCAT stands for the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal. A lot of landlords only come across QCAT when something's gone terribly wrong at their investment. So for example, your tenant hasn't paid their rent, they haven't left the property, there is damage, and you can't come to an agreement. But QCAT isn't something you fear. It's actually just the final process in this tenancy process. And that's where you go to get your final order. It's a legally binding order. So let me explain how all of this fits in. Say for example, a dispute arises, and let's talk about the non-urgent ones first, over a maintenance or over a bond disagreement when the tenancy is moved out, or a compensation issued during or at the end of your tenancy. Your first step is actually to go to the RTA, utilize their dispute resolution process. It's a conciliation process where the RTA will try to help both sides come to an agreement. But if that fails, meaning there's no resolution, then that's when you apply to QCAT to get your final judgment. Okay, QCAT is a formal process. It's an accessible tribunal. Now, the legislation is steered so that landlords and tenants can self-represent. It's not like a courtroom that is filled with judges and lawyers, so you can represent yourself. A QCAT member or adjudicator will hear your evidence, apply the legislation, and make a legally binding decision. So the kind of applications that do end up at QCAT either fall into two categories. The first category is urgent, right? Under urgent applications, these things will be like termination for failure to leave because your tenant hasn't paid their rent. Any urgent repairs, that could be a safety hazard on your property, or the tenants will refuse to allow trades or salespeople to enter your property. Non-urgent applications are things like bond disputes where your tenant has left the property and nobody can come to an agreement about who gets what part of the bond, or any compensation claims that either during a tenancy or at the end of the tenancy. Now, each of these urgent and non-urgent application does have its own process and timing. Right, urgent ones like rent arrears or termination can be filed immediately, but non-urgent applications must, as I said, go through the conciliation process first, and if you can't resolve that, then you'll be issued with a notice of unresolved dispute. Something you need to know, it is really important because QCAT only want your facts, not your emotions. You need to make sure that when you present your documentation, it is clear and it is precise and you've got all your evidences and documents attached. The more structured and compliant that your paperwork is, the smoother your process will be when you go to QCAT. So you're going to think of QCAT as the final referee. It's not about who talks the loudest. It's about who's more prepared and who has followed the Residential Tenancies and Roomings Accommodations Act correctly. If you understand that, you will walk in calm and confident instead of flustered, nervous, and reactive. And that is exactly why I am creating this series of QCAT understanding so that landlords across South East Queensland and across Australia can feel informed, compliant, and understand their investments. So if you do find this video and my series helpful, please help me like, follow, and share. I am trying to build a community of followers, and the moment I hit enough numbers to go live, I will be able to do workshops that can answer any of your questions that you do have and make investment a lot easier, especially for the new investors and those that don't understand. So I want you to manage your property smarter, safer, and fairer, especially for landlords.